But just to kick it off though, happy AAPI month.
Hey, happy APA Heritage Month, everyone.
Yeah, it's pretty important. Like it's funny because when I left for China this month, I'm not sure if it exists, but
It
I know
existed, but it was not celebrated the same
yeah.
way, certainly, right?
I didn't see it on billboards, I didn't see it online, I didn't see it in a lot of commercials, but maybe Jason you can cook a little bit about AAPI month and basically how it got to be what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, actually, so it's technically existed since 1992. Before that, even it started as like first they gave us 1 week. They're like, hey,
Okay.
let's make an Asian Pacific Heritage Week.
Right.
And then after a while, there's Black History Month. There's all kinds of other history months. It seemed a little disrespectful to just have a week for all of Asian and Pacific Islander Americans.
Right.
So they
Makes sense.
expanded it. Yeah,
You know,
to a month. And this one is a less known fact. APA Heritage Month is in May, because that's both the month that the Transcontinental Railroad was completed, um, and it's also the same month that the first documented Japanese American immigrants came to this continent.
you know, when I first heard AAPI month and putting us together with Asian Pacific Islanders and everyone,
Hmm.
I've come to your side a little bit about this topic because I used to think, you know, I'm Chinese. What do I know about a Samoan's breakfast? Or what do I know
Yep.
about someone Filipino or someone from Japan or anything? But, um, when we discussed an Asian American culture versus an identity and representation in government, in a lot of social programs and whatnot, I kind of realized I understand that we don't have to be all of one culture to be united, but we
Yep.
do need to be of one identity. So, now I really celebrate this month and appreciate that, we do have our Heritage Month. And, yesterday, we could just talk about you doing Bespoken at the Chinese American Museum really also helped me, shed a light to the, of course, in this particular scenario, the Chinese American path into the US. And I wanted to give you a
Hmm.
little moment to shine about that too. Congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you, man. Thanks. So yeah, for our listeners who don't know, I'm a guest curator this year for the Chinese American Museum. It's one of LA's like really dope sort of like community museums. It's right there across from Union Station, really in the heart of downtown LA. And it actually was founded about a little over 20 years ago by a group of Chinese American community members, um, they'd all been researching the history of downtown LA and realized that actually historical Chinatown is the area that's now known as sort of like Union Station in downtown LA, and actually it was originally Chinatown, and the original residents got kicked out by lynching, by literally were driven out. Um, and so I guess curated an exhibition of Asian American spoken word. And it's been really fun to put it together. Some of my like real heroes and mentors in the poetry space uh, are in the exhibition. And yeah, we just launched that yesterday, and it's going to be open for the rest of the year. So that was pretty exciting, and it's as someone who didn't grow up in LA, standing there and seeing this museum exhibition that I co-curated that's gonna be open for the rest of the year in the heart of the city was really cool, man. It was a really neat moment. I was glad that you could be there with us to celebrate.
Yeah, I went with my wife, and she, to be perfectly honest, in the Asian American, let's say, I don't even want to call it struggle, but after seeing what we had to go through in, well, let's just say in the 1800s, and then up
Hmm.
until like the 60s and 70s, you know, you and I both are really for the empowerment of Asian Americans, right? But we take kind
Yeah.
of different angle where you're kind of more an activist and I'm more of a, all right, let's do business, let's make money, let's understand the
Hmm.
chessboard and just kind of empower ourselves in that sense to get ahead. And I think going to the Chinese American Museum yesterday really kind of shed a light that both are necessary, right? Because
Yeah.
there was the moments where, Chinese people couldn't own land, and Chinatown was one of the
Mhm.
first places where, and at least in LA, where Asian Americans could actually own property
That's right.
in LA. And but on top of that, you saw that the way that we really stepped up the empowerment of Asian Americans is when Monterey Park started opening, and we were starting creating commerce and more business, and
Mhm.
creating more of a economy around Chinese Americans. And another interesting thing that I did know about yesterday was a lot of this oriental cliche kitschy type of menus that you see, or toys, or those poppers, those were actually created by Chinese people as tourist gifts, or let's say trinkets, that are, yes, by today's standard, quite racist, but these like oriental cliche stereotypical things to attract foreigners to Chinatown to buy stuff and actually to create commerce, which I thought was super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it Chinatown was kind of the original K-pop, right? When
Yeah.
you think about the ways that Chinatowns uh functioned in like the early 1900s, the way of survival, the way of economic survival was by attracting interest.
Yeah.
People were like, oh hey, I want to try this food that's like different than what I eat at home, and the only place to get that is in Chinatown. Or hey, I just read this news story about Chinese culture, and the only place I can experience that is by going to the Chinatown near me. And this is something that Asian Americans, it turns out, have done for as long as we've been in this country, since the mid 1800s, right? Is find ways to either hide from negative attention, or to encourage positive attention, to encourage attention that frankly helps us pay the rent and survive.
Well, that's the thing, right? I feel like, I don't think there is a right or wrong between like you and I and our approaches and how to empower our people. Because I think yesterday going to the museum really showed me throughout our history, you kind of need both. You need the senators, you need the councilmen, you need the influence in politics and government to be able to allow us to then develop economies, develop business, to flourish as a community. So it's I feel like it really is a multi-pronged approach that both you and I now advocate really for. And it did bring up, I did think of the question of Chinatown in general, just maybe this is particular to the LA Chinatown, but after I went to the
Mhm.
event and I was driving down the streets trying to find a restaurant to eat at, to be honest, I couldn't really, I felt that it was a little dead. It was not like
Yeah.
popping off like Monterey Park or Alhambra on a Friday or a Thursday night. And it
Mhm.
honestly saddened me. And I know that there is a movement to quote unquote save Chinatown and to keep it and preserve it the way it is, but to not gentrify it. But I'm at
Yeah.
odds with that because I feel like if there is outside investment going into Chinatown in LA, and remember this is prime property. It's really close to downtown LA. It's really close to
Mhm.
Silver Lake. I mean, I feel like it's a obviously I'm not saying it's a place to exploit, but is a place to develop, that's for sure. And if we could bring some money back into Chinatown, what do you see the issue with that is?
No, I'm a big fan of that. I talk a lot actually with friends about the idea of what I like to call pre-gentrification.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is exactly places like Chinatown. I think that often Asian American communities, in this case Chinese American communities, um, we kind of want to get away from it, right? The kids who grew up in Chinatown want to get away from that. They see that as the past. They see that as, when they get successful, they want to move away. But then the problem is who is attracted there? It's outside companies, outside investors, outside business people who say, "Hey, this place is cool. It's got cultural capital. It's a really interesting looking place that tourists want to come to." And
Yeah.
they wind up coming in and running the neighborhood. And I have this idea that we should we should basically do that before they do, right? We've got to see, we've talked before about sort of cultural appropriation and boba,
Yeah.
right? About how like now that boba's cool, there's all of these companies who want to be in the boba, the Asian inspired beverages lane.
Yeah.
And thankfully that's a lane where a lot of our friends, like, Seven Leaves, like Boba Guys, like, these companies have said, hey, we're Asian owned and we love this and we want to, promote it and share it with others.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that's what we need to do. We need to be the ones, and that's why like so when I go to Chinatown, LA, I go to places like Steep.
Yeah.
Our friend Sam started this tea house.
Yeah. Great.
I go
Awesome
to
place. Taiwanese food there is awesome, by the way.
their food is so good.
Yeah. The
Their
drinks
food is
too. The
underrated.
drinks is great. The drinks are great too. So Steep is great.
Yeah, Steve, or yesterday, a couple days ago, right before the exhibition opened, I took some of the artists out to lunch, some of the poets out to Hop Woo, which is
Top
my
Blue.
favorite like
The
seafood
OG.
and like
Yep.
barbecue duck place. Um, yeah, we really need to invest in and love and support our own institutions. Otherwise, yeah, you'll wake up and in 5 years, Chinatown's not going to be Chinatown anymore. It's just going to be a name on a building.
It's I often see though on social media protests from Chinatown locals from a lot of projects that are being developed there. And you know, the entrepreneur in me wants to tell them this is actually a positive thing. I understand they're
Mhm.
worried about being priced out, just like any gentrification. But is it okay if I'm asking you, Jason, is it all right if Chinese people
Yeah.
gentrify it? Like, are we just worried that
See,
white people are going to gentrify it? But in fact, like you said, we should pre-gentrify it. Like, all right, if it's Chinese people, it softens the
Mhm.
blow a little bit.
Yeah, so that is actually one of the conversations around LA Chinatown,
Yeah,
which is that a lot of like my favorite place. There was this pho place on Broadway called Broadway Pho, of
yeah,
course. That everyone loved going to, and a couple years ago, it and like the Asian skincare store next to it, that whole strip mall, was bulldozed down, and now it's become a construction site, and it's going to become this high rise, luxury apartments, um, and and it is being that development is being run by I think a Chinese Canadian developer.
yeah.
And I I honestly don't know how to do it completely right. Like there's these ideas. If you get into like gentrification and displacement conversations,
Yeah.
there's these things like community land trusts, like community covenants where developers can come in and say, "Hey, we're going to make money." And then the community can say, "Hey, sure, come in, make money. We understand, you need to do business, but, can you pledge that, 10% of the units are going to be, available for subsidized housing for the elders that used to live in this, in this plot of land before you bought it up. Can you promise that, for example, a major issue right now is that Chinatown doesn't have affordable grocery stores. The last one kind of got kicked out a while ago. I think something like 6 years ago, five, no, something like 4 years ago, the grocery store that everyone in Chinatown went to closed down and moved out to the San Gabriel Valley. So
But that was
I,
because they couldn't sustain, right? It just the business didn't make sense anymore there. I think it was Shunfa or Shunfat or something,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So that's the thing, right? Like I think, and we've talked about this before, right? It's kind of like, what's the purpose of business? And obviously, businesses exist to make a profit, but they also exist to serve communities, right? And I think all these conversations that I've seen in the housing space, and I'm not an expert, but what seems really promising are these community covenants where people who come in to develop and do business and make a profit off the land in these spaces, where they have these agreements in place with the community to say like, hey, at least we're gonna do our business, but we're also gonna promise to care in some ways for the communities that have always been here
Yeah.
and that were here before we came along. that's kind of the direction that I'd like to see it go.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been some neighborhoods. I think there's examples of places around the country and around the world where that's actually worked out, and developers make their money while also ensuring that things like access to groceries, things like green space for kids and elders,
Yeah.
even things, sometimes these community covenants even extend to including things like, hey, we're gonna have, instead of like a park on the ground floor of this compound that's closed to outsiders and you can only access if you've got a key card.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the green space is going to be open to elders in the community, so even if you don't live here, you can come and sit here and enjoy it. Even little small things like that
Yeah.
can really change the impact that a development has on either making people feel unwelcome in their neighborhood or making people feel like they still have a place.
Yeah, I think that's important because I've even looked into developing some things, some projects out there, but just the red tape and a lot of
Mhm.
the permits that would be required is a little too difficult because of a lot of local pushback, whatnot. So I nominate Jason Chu as the mayor of Chinatown, and so Kung Properties can go in there and create a supermarket and a karaoke for everyone in the city to enjoy, like they do in K Town and all these places.
Chinatown needs karaoke.
Bro.
Chinatown needs more karaoke lounges.
Bro, if you were the president or the mayor of Chinatown, we could do some things because I have so many businesses that I want to open up there that would make the whole community flourish, and make it our K Town, because come on, bro, like K Town's flourishing in LA. Chinatown should not be only in San Gabriel Valley. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, and for LA Chinatown, that's the issue, is that like all the new blood, all the new money is flowing into SGV, and Chinatown's honestly kind of getting neglected and left behind.
Well, that's what you do. That yesterday, that museum just taught me how to do it. Cater to foreigners. Cater to people who don't want to drive out to San Gabriel Valley. Make it somewhere that's, I want to say cliche and kitschy, but something that we all can get behind and go, yeah, this is the new Chinese culture. This is the new Asian culture. This is the new Asian American culture in LA. And we want to share that part with you. You know who's done this already? I mean, this is a very localized podcast today already, but like near Sawtell. What they've done on Sawtell near 405 has really done that for the West Side. And it's shown that, first of all, there's a market for it. Second of all, people want to go, and it's good for everyone. There's no, I wouldn't say anything is being culturally appropriated, or anyone is offended by foreigners wanting to come eat, some cold soba or some yakitori bar or some ramen bar. I feel like it's a good thing. So that's what I would do to Chinatown. If anyone's listening, or watching this video right now, please know that we have nothing but good intentions and trying to bring Chinatown back.
Good intentions and some business plans. That's what we got.
Exactly.